At 3:14 local time, in the island nation of Bahrain, inside the operations cabin of a Patriot system, the AN/MPQ-65 radar detects 12 tiny radar cross-section (RCS) signatures crawling just above sea level at a speed of 110 knots. They are Shaheds, lawnmowers carrying explosives from Iran. For the commander of the air defense battery, this is not a test of courage, but a brutal calculation of magazine depth. Launching a $4 million interceptor missile to destroy a $30,000 drone is equivalent to deploying a supercomputer server just to filter a spam message sent from an old Nokia phone. Iran is not using this drone swarm to destroy the base. It is using them to buy out the entire stock of ready-to-fire missiles sitting on American launchers. Tehran's objective is extremely specific: force the enemy's defense system to waste all of its resources on worthless variables, creating a temporary state of firepower bankruptcy and clearing the path for the real warheads waiting to descend from the edge of space. While the Patriot batteries in Bahrain rotate their launchers to finalize the attrition of these low-velocity variables, Tehran's command initiates the primary phase of its engagement sequence: the deployment of the Fatah-1 ballistic missile. The IRGC Operational Command demonstrates significant technical competence by timing this strike to coincide with a specific saturation window. This is the temporal gap where fire control computers are operating at maximum capacity to classify swarm data, and physical interceptor racks are entering the high-risk reload cycle. The Fatah-1 enters the terminal phase from a near-vertical descent, reaching a velocity of Mach 13. A speed that effectively compresses the defender's reaction window to a handful of seconds. At an altitude of 30,000 feet, the Fatah-1 warhead shifts the combat equation. It activates high-pressure lateral thrusters, executing sudden, high-G S-turns that defy the predictive algorithms of the Patriot PAC-3. By inducing these non-linear deviations, the missile transforms into a shadow vector, a target that is visible on radar but mathematically localized at a point where the interceptors are no longer heading. The engagement results in 2 recorded impacts. The first kinetic strike compromises a service node 130 feet from the command hub, while the second flattens a primary satellite uplink dish. To an external observer, this appears to be a decapitation of the Fifth Fleet's communication network. However, the U.S. naval architecture is defined by systemic redundancy, utilizing HF radio, UHF, SATCOM, and Link 16. Losing a single dish is the tactical equivalent of cutting a landline when the occupant possesses multiple smartphones and satellite links. Within minutes, the data stream is autonomously rerouted, and the Fifth Fleet continues its air campaign without a single millisecond of command latency. 4 a.m. Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar. The Gulf sky is no longer a silent night. It is turned into a blazing graveyard, illuminated by 380 incoming targets. Iran is no longer probing. It unleashes a metal storm of Shahab ballistic missiles and suicide drones, layered on top of one another to overload the brain of America's radar network. Inside the command center, the Patriot PAC-3 MSE system begins its cleanup procedure. The United States does not fire one interceptor at a time. It employs a tactic called ripple fire. For every incoming target, 2 interceptor missiles are launched exactly 8 seconds apart. At an altitude of 80,000 feet, the battle does not create cinematic fireballs. Instead, at collision speeds reaching 8,000 miles per hour, Iran's steel and explosives are instantly vaporized. They turn into drifting clouds of fine plasma dust in the upper atmosphere. 380 targets are crushed. Leakage rate, 0. But Iran proves it understands the rules of the game. In the very last wave of fire, 2 Shahab, 3 warheads execute a mathematical deception. At 30,000 feet, they ignite lateral thrusters and perform a sudden maneuver to break free from the Patriot system's line of sight. 1 warhead slips through, carving a 10-meter-wide crater directly into Jordan's main runway. Black smoke rises, warning sirens scream, signaling a fracture in the operational logic chain of the American defense network. America's response is not panic, but a mechanical procedure known as the infrastructure pit stop. Before the debris of the Iranian missile has even cooled, USS combat engineers rush onto the runway with super adhesive concrete. While Iran may spend years building a single missile, the United States needs only 45 minutes to erase the crater using an industrial compound capable of near-instant hardening. And this is where the dominance becomes clear. While the base is still thick with the smell of smoke, an F-35 fighter pushes its throttle to maximum power. With 43,000 pounds of thrust, the aircraft tears down the runway directly over concrete that has barely finished curing. The United States does not wait to clear the battlefield or file damage reports. It launches straight out of an operating room still under attack, sending the receipt back to Tehran through coordinates already locked in by Link 16. Inside the cockpit, the TR-3 processor begins its sensor fusion sequence. Thermal blooms the bright infrared signatures left behind when Iran's transporter erector launchers, TELs, fired 10 minutes earlier, have already been digitized by satellites into high-resolution target packages. Even though the launch vehicles have already moved from their original firing positions, the F-35's Active Electronically Scanned Array (AESA) radar performs a synthetic aperture radar sweep through the darkness and layers of multispectral camouflage, precisely identifying the mechanical outlines of the TEL vehicles as they attempt to retreat into hardened shelters hidden within the Zagros mountain range. The engagement reaches its climax as the F-35 enters the weapon release zone. To preserve its stealth characteristics, the internal weapon bay doors open for exactly 4 seconds. During those 4 seconds, the fighter's radar cross-section, RCS, blooms from the size of a marble to that of a truck. But it is far too little and far too late for Iran's S-300 air defense radars to generate a viable firing solution. 2,000-pound GBU 3-1 JDAM smart bombs are released, dropping into controlled free fall. These solid steel blocks, guided by GPS and inertial navigation systems (INS), are not randomly searching for targets. They are completing a geometric proof of destruction. While Iranian launch crews are still struggling through the mechanical recovery procedures for their launch platforms, American firepower arrives at terminal subsonic velocity. The bomb's hardened steel casing punches through the roof of the launcher vehicle and multiple layers of hardened camouflage before the delayed fuse activates. The kinetic energy of a 2,000-pound mass is converted entirely into seismic shockwaves, transforming a launcher worth tens of millions of dollars, along with the enemy's entire reserve ammunition stockpile, into a heap of molten scrap metal at the mouth of the bunker. At a naval grid coordinate in the Arabian Sea, the AN/SPY-1D phased array radar aboard the escorting destroyers completes the trajectory mapping of incoming anti-ship ballistic missiles the moment they leave their launch rails in Iran. Inside the Combat Information Center (CIC) of the USS Abraham Lincoln, humans no longer function as tactical decision-makers. They are merely observers standing behind silicon processing cycles. To optimize the defensive equation, the USS Abraham Lincoln executes the pivot, a hard turn with maximum torque, forcing 100,000 tons of steel to lean across the Arabian Sea. This is not an act of panic. It is pure radar cross-section (RCS) mathematics. The carrier rotates its axis to present the smallest possible reflective angle to enemy active seekers, creating a geometric blind spot that throws the targeting algorithms of Iranian missiles into a state of data desynchronization. The counterfire response begins in the black void of space. The vertical launch system (VLS) hatches aboard the escorting destroyers snap open with perfect mechanical rhythm. SM-3 interceptor missiles leave their cells, punching through the troposphere, the stratosphere, and into the vacuum beyond. At an altitude of 60 miles, where the sky fades from blue into absolute darkness, a basketball-sized kill vehicle separates from the missile body. It carries no chemical explosives. Its firepower exists in pure kinetic energy. Using nitrogen thrusters to make millimeter-level trajectory corrections, the kill vehicle performs a thread-the-needle interception against an Iranian missile traveling at Mach 13. With a combined closing speed approaching 10,000 miles per hour, the solid American steel mass slams directly into its target. The entire structure of the Iranian missile is instantly vaporized into a spray cloud of plasma dust, disappearing from Aegis radar screens before it can even begin its terminal descent phase. Understanding the saturation limits of high-altitude defenses, Tehran launches an infrared blinding strike. A pair of Shahed drones skim the ocean surface at exactly 50 feet, exploiting the curvature of the earth and sea clutter to hide beneath the radar horizon. They penetrate the outer defensive layer and approach the 2-mile threshold, where reaction time is measured only in heartbeats. The response of the CRAM system aboard the Lincoln is a fully automated mechanical reflex. Its independent infrared seeker ignores all radar interference, ripple-firing 2 interceptor missiles into the night exactly 3 seconds apart. At the same time, the tungsten Gatling cannon begins its 4,500 rounds per minute firing cycle. A mechanical scream tears through the darkness as the swarm of angry hornets exits the barrel at 3,600 feet per second. The tungsten rounds do not need to search for targets. They create a dense metal wall directly across the drone's flight path. After only 4 seconds of contact, the plastic airframes of the Shaheds are completely disassembled, reduced to industrial debris drifting across the surface of the sea. The performance of Carrier Strike Group 3 is ultimately defined by the Cooperative Engagement Capability System. Within this distributed architecture, the steel neural network allows a destroyer 20 nautical miles away to execute a firing command using raw sensor data from the Lincoln itself. The strike group now operates as a single biomechanical organism, 1,000 eyes, 100 steel arms, and 1 silicon brain functioning with zero margin of error. Not a single Iranian weapon touches the paint of any ship in the formation. As the last plasma clouds dissipate in the ionosphere, the Persian Gulf returns to a state of sterile, mathematical stillness. The metal storm has concluded, leaving behind an ocean surface wiped clean of Iranian variables. Tehran's saturation strategy has reached terminal bankruptcy, not through a lack of fire, but through a total deficit in the physics of recovery. While the IRGC attempts to catalog the catastrophic loss of its mobile launch infrastructure, the coalition's distributed network has already archived the encounter as a successful diagnostic cycle. The landing of the F-35S and Super Hornets marks the physical closing of the ledger. Every thermal signature detected by orbital sensors was met with a clinical GBU settlement, transforming high-value command nodes into static-filled geological sinkholes. The battle proves a new axiom of the modern age. Volume is irrelevant when the defender possesses the ability to rewrite the geometry of the sky in real time. In this clinical exchange, the United States didn't just defend a base, it performed a systemic purge of a regional threat. The adversary remains with a hollowed inventory, while the American machine remains in a state of perpetual readiness, its algorithms now sharper, its neural web now more experienced. The audit is finalized. Now, if you want to continue following the strategic strikes of Operation Epic Fury, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Goodbye.